Hey gang, welcome to an all-new episode of Flea Market Finds right here on ToyWorldOrder.com, coming to you from the Toy Bar, the famous toy bar of Dave and Devall's Toys and Collectibles, which you can hear every week on ToyWorldOrder.com. This show is all about the things that I find at flea markets, garage sales, antique stores, rummage sales, which are kind of the same thing as garage sales. It gets complicated, but all the cool stuff that I happen to come across. Now, this episode, as you can see, over here, there's quite a few things that I found over the last few weeks. Some of them are kind of cool, some of them are board games, books, puzzles, a little bit of everything that I tend to find that my eye is drawn to that I collect. So let's take a look at some of the things. Now, Dave Draper and I recently attended an estate auction, which if you listen to the show on Dave and Devall's Toys and Collectibles or Married to the Collection, you know that it was not a good experience at all. It was pretty horrible. They had some great toys there, but a lot of stiff competition with a lot of toy dealers who had bottomless pockets full of money that were just throwing ridiculous amounts of cash at things. But the few things I managed to come away with were pretty cool and stuff that I had wanted for a while. One of the things was this awesome loose skull walker from Bravestar. Now, I have a whole huge collection of Bravestar stuff behind me that's mint in box. I've got a lot of stuff that's loose as well. And my poor little Tex Hex here had always been without his mount. And at this auction, lo and behold, I found this on a table. And I didn't win the auction, but I actually talked to the guy that won the auction and happened to buy it for 18 bucks, which was a good deal. It's kind of cool. I love this old Bravestar stuff. I love the fact that the Skull Walker, when you turned the dial on the back, his little feet looks like he rends. And he can turn into a little spaceship, little air carrier, which is kind of cool. One of those it's one of those lines that no one really gives a lot of thought about, which is sad. I love this line. I've always loved this line. Bravestar has always been one of those things to me that draws my attention no matter where I'm at. If I see a Bravestar box, I'm like, ooh, Bravestar. But a nice little addition to my loose collection of Bravestar stuff, and Tex Hex finally has his mount. One of the other things I found, if you were a fan of the 1989 Batman movie with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, as I am, you'll remember that in '89, when this movie came out, Toy Biz, which was a then pretty much unknown toy company, managed to get the rights and released some pretty okay figures and some really cool vehicles. And the Batwing was one of those vehicles that I had as a kid. Don't know what happened to mine. I wish I did. It's long gone. But the Batwing was always a cool vehicle, and this was one of the things that was at the auction that Dave actually won, and I bought off Dave. Since Dave already has a Batwing, I wanted one really bad. So I gave him the $7.50 it cost for the Batwing and came home with it. The Batwing's always really cool with the squeeze of a trigger on the bottom. It had villain catching pinchers on the front and suction cups that actually could, I'm not going to fire it, but actually can fire out thanks to some knobs in the back that you pull out, and the air pressure actually pushes the suction cups out to suction cup onto glassy things. But overall, a very cool addition to my collection that is still, as I always say, every episode ever growing, and something I've looked forward to having for a long time for a decent price. So something that's going to have a nice location in my display. The last thing I managed to come away with in this estate auction was this awesome Masters of the Universe vintage collector case in really good shape. All the vinyl's really good shape, great artwork on the front and back. And the best thing was that upon opening it, there were figures. There was some really good figures, I think. We had a Battle Armor He-Man. We had a regular He-Man he's a little scuffed up, but not in bad shape at all. A Man-at-Arms with all of his armor, which is always nice to have. Choo-choo! I always loved Man-at-Arms. He was one of my favorites. Regular Skeletor, a Battle Armor Skeletor. Again, I love the Battle Armor figures. I think they're awesome. And the reason I really bid on this was because there was a Ram Man in there, and his wristbands were the stickers were in they're in okay condition, but he had his axe, and the fact that he still works. Ram Man was one of those first figures I had besides He-Man and Skeletor, and one of those figures that I just have never gone around to getting. And since I saw this and saw that who's in there, I decided I'm gonna get that, and walked away with it for, I think, a whopping 25 bucks. So a good little price to pay for some great figures, some great vintage figures, and figures I didn't have loose. So something to walk away from a very bad experience was a very cool Masters of the Universe collector case with some figures. And lastly, for the action figure portion of this show, Carrie and I were at a flea market, and we happened across this awesome, and I think it was LJN made these, this little gizmo, posable gizmo. His head moves, his arms move, really cool. He's pretty dirty. I haven't had a chance to clean him up yet. I'm not sure if he will clean up, but something I didn't have. I still need to find the stripe from this series, because these two figures were kind of difficult to find when they came out, and it was just kind of cool to see him sitting on a table all by himself, and Carrie goes, "We need to buy that." Yes, we do. So Gizmo will find a nice home on one of my many shelves. Some of the things I like to collect are kids books, and that may sound very weird, but some of these great vintage kids books have some amazing artwork, and they just don't make kids books like these anymore. Some of the ones I found was an awesome Looney Tunes activity pad from 1981. Never used, but again, some great artwork found within, and some great artistic renditions of the Looney Tunes characters in a way that you just don't see them make anymore. Always loved these. I found Care Bear's Cousins in A Day in the Forest of Feelings, a little listen and read record book, and for those of you young enough to not know what a record was what we had before there were tapes and CDs and MP3s. These magnificent things. Very cool. A lot of times you find these books, you don't really find the books with their records, and to find it with its record was very cool. And again, the artwork in this book is so amazing. I love the old artwork. They don't make kids books like these anymore at all. Roadrunner, A Very Scary Lesson, which was another neat little book, neat little Looney Tunes book that has a ton of Roadrunners in it, and again, amazing artwork in it. Walter Lance's Woody Woodpecker Takes a Trip. Woody Woodpecker is one of those characters that a lot of people don't know anymore, which is kind of sad. If you go to Universal Studios, you can still see a walk-around Woody Woodpecker character. Not something they really play cartoons for anymore, and that's the sad part. Woody Woodpecker is one of those classic characters. And again, this book, some amazing artwork inside of it. An unused Inspector Gadget coloring and activity book, which is very cool to find. Some of the pages were a little bent, but again, amazing cool artwork in a book from Troll Associates. This awesome Danger Mouse hardback storybook, The Wizard of Oz, which is really cool. And again, the artwork in this book is spectacular. I love this stuff so much. I love looking at it. I do read all these, which is really cool. Some of the stories are kind of cheesy, but again, the artwork, top notch. And they just don't make cool stuff like this, especially Danger Mouse. They didn't make a whole lot of these. I think they only made a couple of Danger Mouse books like this, but very cool to have. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Don't Do Drugs, a rap song. I'm not going to say much about this book. The artwork in it, again, kind of cool, classically inspired animated turtles mixed with kind of realistic renditions of humans. The rap song in here, horrible. Maybe on one episode I'll read you the whole book and you can see just how bad it truly is. But another cool little book, and something I just don't see. I mean, they still make kids books, of course, but nothing like with this cheese amount. And a Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future coloring book, which again, never used, and the artwork in here again is spectacular, which just goes to show you why I collect these old coloring books and these old kids books, because nothing beats the great artwork in these books. Awesome stuff. And last but not least, some board games to end out this episode. One of the things I bought was a Sesame Street Light and Learn board game. Very easy, very cool setup. Just simply had these awesome little question and answer boards that went onto it. It had the great little metal pin, which this one has been repaired so it works. But basically you would take it, takes 2 C batteries, and you would take it and you would poke the holes and it would light up when you got the right answer, which was kind of neat. Very cool. Something I had when I was 4 or 5, and I remember playing with it non-stop because it was always really cool and it helped to learn. So something when I saw it at a garage sale and saw that it was complete and worked, I had to pick it up. Now usually you guys know with the board game stuff, I usually show you set up pictures of it as I'm talking about it. This is something that I'm not going to try to set up just because I don't, well, be honest, I don't feel like putting it together. But it's not a board game. It's actually a WWF Wrestling Superstars Hulk Hogan puzzle. This one's from my buddy Scotty Cash. He loves Hulk Hogan. And he's not getting this, of course, but it is a very cool, very neat puzzle, very simple, blue background with the Hulkster in his classic 80s attire in the front of it. Very cool, very neat thing. I love finding puzzles like this, and as long as they're complete, which it is because we did count the pieces, there are 250 pieces here and they're all there. This is one of those cool things. I love collecting. One of these days I'm going to end up putting all my puzzles together and framing them, which kind of sounds a little bit white trashy, but they make good display pieces and they're just really neat to look at sometimes. Great, again, like the kids' books, great artwork. And while this isn't artwork and just a photo, still a very cool, nice little nostalgic throwback to the classic days gone by of the 80s. And last but not least, the Flintstone Kids board game. Now, a very simplistic, very simple board game for 2 to 4 players, ages 5 and up. Very neat, based on the classic animated series of the 80s, The Flintstone Kids, which was around for quite some time, from a company that I don't think exists anymore, Cell Show and Writer. Didn't ring a bell to me. Only thing that was missing with this was the Fred Flintstone game piece, which was kind of sad, but everything else is there. The cards are there, all the rest of the playing pieces are there. So a neat little find. And again, I think I paid $1 for it because it had some water damage on the box, and they were gonna basically throw it away. And I was like, I give you $1. Sure enough, okay, take $1 for it. So very cool, neat little board game. Classic again, vintage board game. Very weird because kid Betty has purple hair. Betty never had purple hair. Very odd, very interesting color picks for some of the characters on this. But again, a neat little board game with some great graphics on the actual board and the playing pieces and cards themselves. So there you go, gang. That brings us to the end of another Flea Market Finds. Now, while this episode may not have been as exciting as some of my other ones, I'm always thrilled to show off some of the stuff that I find when I hit these garage sales and flea markets, and gives you kind of a sense of the things that I collect and the reasons I collect them. So hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you go to toyworldorder.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. Join the forums at toyworldorder.com. It's absolutely free. You can leave questions for Dave and Devall's Toys and Collectibles as well as Married to the Collection, and you can interact with tons of other toy fans. So check us out, www.toyworldorder.com, for all the coolest shows, reviews, and more. And make sure you follow me on Twitter at PuppetDevall, because you never know when or where I might be next tweeting some awesome pictures of flea market stuff. So until next time, gang, this is Devall telling you, keep playing with your toys.